All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're doing a deep dive into one of the absolute most fascinating character archetypes in modern fantasy, Tomas Reed. Now, as someone who spends a lot of time analyzing literature, I can tell you that we're not just looking at his unique brand of human raw power as a cool magic system. No, we're going to examine it as a profound, almost literal masterclass in organizational leadership and personal accountability. Seriously, whether you're a student of literature or a corporate leader, Tomas provides this stunning framework for what it actually means to carry weight in a world that is constantly trying to shift the burden onto somebody else.
So to really get this, we have to establish his incredibly humble origins. Think back to the first scatter. The world is aggressively searching for miracles, right? And you've got kings, demons, angelic sentinels, and they are all laser-focused on the obvious stuff. You know, the prophecies, the grand towers, sacred bloodlines, shining battlefields, the whole shebang. But they completely ignore the low district of Marroquet. Tomas Reed survived specifically because, well, nobody watches warehouse workers. He literally arrived carrying a broken crate through a rain-sick market, with a face that every guard instantly forgot. His magic wasn't born from some celestial alignment, it was born from the exact things the powerful ignore: unpaid labor, swallowed anger, and just absolute exhaustion.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the power of ordinary endurance. Second, defining the common weight. Third, contrasting styles of power. Fourth, challenging absolute authority. And finally, number 5, the dilemma of complete sacrifice.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, the power of ordinary endurance.
Now, what's really wild is that by the time power actually found Tomas at age 31, it didn't need to teach him endurance at all. It just gave his 31 years of everyday physical labor and honest debt a magical shape. Just look at his childhood. His mother cutting sailcloth in a room smelling of salt. His father literally losing the strength in his arm to a snapped bridge pulley. Tomas learned early on that hunger isn't some roaring monster. It's a quiet, patient mathematics. He counted the cracks and stone steps, memorized the physical argument of a heavy barrel. So later, when that corrupt grainmaster, Pel Averick, tried to force Tomas to sign a demonic harvest bond by pressing his thumb into the ink, Tomas didn't summon fire or lightning. No way. His accumulated lifetime of rent, medicine, and honest promises simply answered back with a heavier truth, and it cracked that contract right across the table.
Moving right along to Section 2, defining the common weight.
So the crucial takeaway here is that Tomas isn't out there casting flashy, destructive magic. His power, which gets named common weight, acts exactly like a worker demanding an honest accounting of a loaded warehouse beam. It ensures that absolutely nothing passes through him for free. It doesn't silence other magic. Instead, it forces that magic to carry the real, unstolen cost of what it's trying to do. It literally asks lies to become heavy. For any students or professionals analyzing accountability, this is the ultimate metaphor, right? True strength isn't about destroying the opposition. It's about forcing the opposition to feel the unstolen weight of their own actions.
And you really see this play out across different spectrums of authority. Whether he's facing manipulative, demonic commands that try to steal a crowd's will, or this overwhelming, holy, angelic authority that demands blind reverence, common weight just grounds people. It anchors them. It literally prevents human knees from buckling beneath awe. It lets people make conscious, accountable choices without being emptied by fear or crushed by reverence. He's not resisting the sacred out of contempt, you know? He's resisting collapse.
Which brings us to Section 3, contrasting styles of power. When we map out the other raw power users side by side, the differences are just striking. You've got Ilian Mar with this fast, solitary savior complex, and Bran Eister using pure, aggressive, crushing force. Salah Vorn is hunting for cracks and spells, but Thomas? His strength is slow and enduring. Think about when Ilion descended into that sealed grain cellar, expecting to recruit a follower. Tomas didn't bow. He just looked at him with this exhausted suspicion and asked, "Are you here to save us or to recruit us?" He acts as this anchoring conscience for the group. Actually, my favorite example is in training, when Mira reflects his own fear back at him. Tomas doesn't shatter like everyone expects him to. He simply apologizes to his own reflected fear for ignoring it. It proves that power doesn't always have to rise from clean courage. Sometimes it rises from the grief and shame that you refuse to weaponize.
Let's dive into Section 4, Challenging Absolute Authority.
If you are a corporate leader or manager, you're going to want to pay really close attention to this slide on the demonic conversion process. The demonic crowns in this world don't just destroy things with fire. They use a corrupt, systemic corporate ladder. Look at this progression. They turn grief into appetite, appetite into a pact, the pact into a chain, and finally, the chain into a throne. They take ordinary, honest human needs, like wanting wages paid on time or a roof that doesn't leak, and convert them into fraudulent debt and absolute ownership. It's essentially the darkest possible version of a hostile corporate takeover, built entirely on weaponizing people's desperation.
And that perfectly sets the stage for Veyrath of the Tall Ledger, the ultimate demonic auditor. His magic is terrifying precisely because it mimics righteous order. Veyrath used balance and fairness as a literal club. I mean, we're talking about charging widows for burial taxes and defining human beings as just reclaimable material. But Tomas defeats him right in the center of the market without swinging a single sword. When Veyrath unleashes every failure of Tomas's life to try and crush him, Tomas kneels, puts his hands on the stones, and accepts his true guilt. But, and this is the genius part, he pushes the false, exaggerated verdict downward. He forces the demonic ledger to remember compassion as an unpaid force. The fraudulent debts literally gain the weight of their own lies, and the pages just tear themselves out of the book.
This philosophy gets tested again during the Night of Borrowed Crowns. Lesser demons had handed out invisible crowns to desperate victims, basically turning them into tiny tyrants of their own pain. You had a betrayed wife trying to control her house, a beaten apprentice controlling his master, and while heroes like Bran and Ilion wanted to just unleash raw force and smash the crowns, Tomas stops them. He walks in completely alone and speaks directly to the original wound. He tells the wife, "Your oath was broken. Do not become the breaking." Instead of using force to strip away power, Tomas demands accountability from the victims themselves. And by doing that, he causes the stolen demonic crowns to become too heavy for their stolen pain to hold. They literally just fall into the street. It's an unbelievable display of leadership transforming victims into accountable participants.
All right, let's wrap up with Section 5, the dilemma of complete sacrifice.
We have to ask this really critical question. And honestly, it's one every manager, teacher, and parent eventually has to face. If a leader catches absolutely everything that falls, do they ironically prevent their team from ever learning how to stand on their own?
You see, every raw power has a shadow side. Tomas's danger isn't ambition in the traditional sense. He doesn't want a throne or followers. His greatest threat is his deep desire for a world where no one else has to carry what he carries. Interestingly, both the demonic crowns and the angelic sentinels recognize that Tomas's fatal flaw is this secret pride of being entirely necessary to everyone's survival. It turns out, the burden that looks the most noble is often the one most eager to become a crown itself.
This journal entry from Tomas hits hard. If I carry everyone, I may become the reason they never learn the strength to carry one another. That is a stark warning for any professional or leader who constantly overfunctions for their team.
It shows us how complete, selfless sacrifice can actually bottleneck the growth of the people around you. If you try to absorb every single failure, every incomplete task, and every emotional burden, you deny others the right to fail, to choose, to repair, and to bear their own truthful weight. You basically become a living prison of responsibility.
Near the end of his journey, a child asks Tomas what his power actually is. He just hands the kid a stone and explains that his power simply asks lies to become heavy too. So, I want to leave you with Tomas's final lesson to that child because it's a pretty profound thought to carry with you today. Think about it. What unnecessary debts, false expectations, or burdens are you currently carrying for other people that you need to put down so that you and they can finally breathe?